What's going on, guys? Cody from Motorcycle MD. In this video, I'll be bringing you alongside with me on this nightmare brake job that I just recently did on a 2004-05 TRX250EX, I believe it was. As big as a hassle as this actually was, this is a very common thing to deal with when it comes to four-wheelers. These things are always ridden hard, always put up wet, and never really maintained as they should be, especially through the years and through multiple owners. So there really is no explanation needed for this video. Just sit back, relax, enjoy my misery. Blowtorches are required as we tackle this TRX brake job. Enjoy! And so it begins. About 5 hours worth of misery turned into about, 15 minutes? Got a brand new box of parts. Got some, a brand new brake line that you saw me throw off to the side. Those are some new brake pads. Now we got a brand new factory Honda Carb. Pretty pricey part right here. It's about $380 for this, but it will outlast this unit, I'm sure. We're replacing a Chinese carb that was on there that I will refuse to work on. With Chinese carbs. They're just garbage. We're going to go ahead and set this mixture screw out about 2.5 turns, just getting ahead of the curve for later. It has no air filter, so we put a brand new air filter and a new skeleton for that, and we have some brand new rotors because these rotors got chewed up from the previous owner running the brake pads down to metal, which is pretty common on four-wheelers. We'll go ahead and get these tires removed. Front axle hub nut right there and the 4 little lug nuts. Easy does it. Nice aluminum rims. I'm going to clean this stuff up before we get started just so I can see what I'm working on, see the pin locks, see everything that I need to. Both sides. It's a dirt bike or a four-wheeler, so it's bound to be this nasty. Little mud guard, when you get that out of the way, we'll go ahead and grab this caliper as well and get that off so we can start assessing what we did. Like I said, I got some parts ahead of time, but had no idea what I was going to get myself into. This was loose. That usually should not pop off like that. That front axle nut was loose from the jump. You can see the scoring on that rotor. They weren't too bad. They weren't too crazy, but we're going to put some new ones on there with some fresh pads anyways. Go ahead and torque those down with some thread locker, and we always tire motorcycle, I don't care what it is, clean these collars up, get all the dirt and grime out of the seals as much as we can so we can assess to make sure they're not ripped or anything. This is some CV2 Molly grease, it's like high torque grease, and it smells like straight butthole, but it works really good, and it lasts forever. Torque these axles down, quite a bit of torque on those, put some new cotter pins in there, go ahead and bend those up, bing bang boom, lock them off, and tie them in. First one's done. I'm thinking this is going to be a great job. Easy does it. Go ahead and start to assess this caliper some more. Get the pins off. This is worth penetrant. I think it's called rust off. And that stuff is amazing. Worth its weight in gold. Grab these pins. We'll spin these out so we can get these brake pads out. And look at this. Down in the metal. Just no care. Straight down. Who cares? This is the floating pin right here. It's always nasty. These things are always... Usually they're bone dry is the problem, but we'll clean all these pivots off so the brake pads can move freely, just nice and smooth. The coloration, I'm not too worried about it. This is a unit that is worked in the dirt and mud. Putting all new parts on here can be very expensive, so we just keep what we can. And we'll do a standard brake job, get the piston all cleaned up. At some point, I don't know what happened. I lost some of the footage of reassembling this side, but get that piston all nice and cleaned up. We're working around a lot of dirt. Get a C-clamp ready. What I like to do is a cool little trick is just break that bleeder loose, so when you push the piston in, the fluid will just flow straight out and into the hose. We're going to re-bleed this whole system anyways, so I'm not trying to save any brake fluid for this guy. And this is where it kind of shut off. I don't know what happened, but push the piston in, fluid should flow right back out of it, and we're good to go. Now we get to the right side, and this is where all of the fun begins. This one would not come off. To be expected, they're not supposed to just come off nice and easy. They are kind of pushed on there with the axle nut. When you go to torque that down, it does press it onto that little spindle. But getting these things off should not be nearly as difficult as what I dealt with. Try the slide hammer technique on a cold hub, no heat at all. And then as I decide how am I going to really attack this thing because it's not wanting to move, let's go ahead and grab a puller like this. We'll put some tension on it, and we want to keep that tension on, and then we'll start to apply some heat. Heat is always the key, especially when you start dealing with stuff like this. I have a 5-minute rule on torches. Heat it up for 5 straight minutes. You're gonna ruin all of the seals. It doesn't matter. Get new ones. Okay, but 30 seconds, 45 seconds of heat on bearings and that kind of stuff, good luck. I even pulled out 2 torches right here, and again, a lot of the footage shot on this thing was me heating stuff up. So I fast forward a crap ton of heating. And this is why I noticed that it's not working. That right side just came right off, so how can I fix this? I don't know yet. So we're going to decide either to send it or to take it off, and it doesn't work. That thing is on there. So we go back at it again. More heat, more torque, a better setup with that puller, a little more stability on it, and heat it up forever, red hot, as hot as you can get it. Then I'll just probably hit this with an impact. Again, just trying to keep tension on it. You heat it up, torque it in a little bit. You just want to keep that pressure on it to get it to back off. And I do have the capsule on there to help me out a little bit. And there's that torque I applied to it. Just keep on heating until we reach what I call the successful temperature, and you see it starts to back itself off, which is great. I don't want to continue to drive into that spindle. The whole point of, I mean, especially when you're this deep into trying to just replace brake pads, you know, and rotors. As little damage you can do to things as possible is obviously the key. And look at that thing, it's like a big hot cake. We got the seal off, but this collar was definitely part of the issue. That's what was locked on there. That wasn't locked. That just slips inside the seal, so it's not like that was the cause. But it's just tension and Mother Nature that corrodes these things to the spindle. So once we get that off, we can clean that all up. Get rid of any of the dark spots or rust that we see. There's a lot of corrosion on the inside of that collar. Sorry, the GoPro does not focus. I don't care what GoPro you have. It's kind of frustrating. There's a smoked seal, and now we're going to put some new bearings in here. Here's a little bearing, kind of like retainer. It spreads open when you apply pressure down onto it. Pulls the bearing right out. You see we have a tapered collar. One bearing is bigger than the other on either side because of that spindle. Get the bearings out. Now let's go ahead and put some brand new ones in there. Press makes light work of it. And we have some brand new seals to put in. You put all these in by hand. Just like with any seal, you want the outer lip of the seal to be flush with whatever you're putting it on. With case seals, with shifter seals, with Kickstarter seals, whatever it is, they're always flush with the metal around it, if that makes sense. And if it goes in too far, just very, very light pressure underneath it, you can get that thing just to level itself out. New rotors on. We'll torque those down later. There's that caliper. Already rebuilt this side while we were waiting for more parts because I had to wait for parts on those bearings. And some emery cloth and just try to clean this thing all up the best we can. Give it a fighting chance for the next 20 years. There's that CV2. And see how this does not go all the way on. It's not supposed to. You gotta drive this thing on with, the easiest thing to do it with is with the bolt. Make sure you put the collar on first. Put that on, put the front collar in as well. Otherwise you'll just slam that seal down into there and you don't want to do that. I kind of beat this on with the old bearing. Once I can get that calcium nut on, we'll just torque that in with the driver, and then I'll just go in behind it and torque it down like it should be. And you can see all these blue straps that I have on there. Doing this kind of wreckage to these type of four-wheelers, you gotta strap these things down, man. Don't be dumb. I strapped it down on all 4 corners. It's strapped down with some locking straps, so it ain't gonna go nowhere. I can beat on it as hard as I want. Now we come to the funnest part of this adventure, which is the rear brake hub. This is very, very common. This is very common for this to happen. And the whole thing we're going after is that little spindle right next to the blowtorch to the right, that locks up. Over time, mud, corrosion, Mother Nature, it will not allow you to function your rear brake shoes. Sometimes it's the pivot where the rear brake lever is pivoting on up front, but more than often it's this part right here. Now this is, you get to a certain point when you're doing a job like this that you're bound to start breaking stuff, all for the sake of just trying to get the job and repair done in the best of your ability, trying to save the customer as much money as possible. So the method of this, there's no puller to get on these things. There's no special tool. It's just trying to get pressure behind the plate while you heat it up so it can slide off the shaft. You can't pull the spindle or that whole axle out. You can't do none of that. You got to get this thing off. You can't do brake pads or shoes. You can't do the spindle. You can't do nothing without that drum cover off. And that's what the whole thing. I'm right here. I'm trying to tap on the pivot arm. As you can see, it takes a hammer to try to move, just to see if the brake pads are holding it up. I've dealt with that before, where the shoes themselves are just not making their way out. And this is when I start calling all the boys over. You know, I need some more hands. We got 3 technicians on this thing right here. We got 2 blow torches, 3 crowbars. We're trying everything. We do get it to move, you know, but at this point, let's just tear this bearing apart. As little damage as possible. We'll rip the bearing down with this little grinder, and then we'll be able to get little ball bearings out.
Hello.
Just like that.
All right, maybe a little more.
That one shot across the shop. But this little Dremel tool is awesome. Just going to grind this bearing down, and you can totally do it with the right bit. And then I can get all of the ball bearings out with the help of my boss, Dave. Awesome guy. My mentor for sure. Once they're all out, we can get this whole drum thing off. And there's our drum cake. So now it's just, which is fine. I'm gonna chisel behind that, or at least cut it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it needs more than just a lube on the pivot. Wow. And now I'm just gonna cut this. This is the inner race of a bearing that's left on there. This was the main culprit. As little damage as possible. But I screwed up. I ground too far into the shaft. It wasn't, you know, catastrophic, and I ruined everything. But this is just kind of crap that happens, and you got to be able to fix your stuff after you've damaged it. You know, you try your best, but sometimes that's just not good enough. And you can only do as good of a job as you allow yourself to. And I got a little bit of a mark on that axle, and so we're going to take care of that later. I'm going to file down all the marks and gnawing that we put on this thing trying to get it off. There's that mark on the shaft. Again, it's not very deep, a couple millimeters, but I'm going to grab some of JB's finest and just try to make a brand new surface on this. This is not a very crucial surface. The bearing's not spinning on this. The bearing race will kind of be pressed onto it, and that would be where it lives. But I just want it to be flat. Ultimately, that's what I want. And we didn't even screw up any of those threads. Isn't that amazing? I'll tell you what. This is the following day, so that was about 4 hours worth of work. This is the following day, and we're going to clean everything up and prepare for assembly. You see some of the parts down the lower right and left. I sandblasted those, so we got some nice clean surfaces. We use some moly, always moly on threads. CV2 is fine too, but moly additive, the more lubricant, the better. Just make sure all those splines are cleaned up, and we'll push that not new, but cleaned up drum hub back in there. Now I'm going to reassemble this cover. We didn't crack it. I was pretty amazed at how durable that thing held up. I thought for sure we were going to snap it, but we didn't. Brand new seals, brand new bearings. I pressed them in the same way as the other stuff. Really pack these seals in. This is a lipped seal. It's a pretty important seal of this whole system. This is kind of what really helps keep everything out. We're going to keep that nice and level. Kind of tap it in. Again, pack it full of grease. Waterproof synthetic grease is what I like to use. Give this thing a fighting chance. And this is the whole purpose while we're here. This guy right here. It didn't move. See how corroded it is? So now we're going to clean that up. Reinstall some new seals here, because all of these seals, everything got torched. That's a rubber seal there, and we got some, there's some more moly here. I'm going to put this inside of here because Molly seems to last quite a while. Get that cleaned up. We're going to orient this now because this has a dot on it that we have to orient with this little paddle here that functions the rear brake cable and the front brake cable. Got some brand new shoes. Didn't plan for that. Had to wait for those parts to come in because, again, you don't know until you know. You really don't. You can tell someone a job's going to take 3 hours or 2 hours to do all the brakes, and all of a sudden you realize that it takes 3 times as long because of what you deal with. So you just got to hurry up and wait for parts. Put the spring back on. This is the wear indicator right there. Make sure that's all lined up for the next guy. Working beautifully. Put our lock nut in. I'll kind of put these in backwards so it can never fall out. Nice cleaned up collar. There is an O-ring that goes in front of that as well. It might not show it here. But this is a giant seal that goes on the outside of the drum. This is supposed to keep all the moisture and mud and everything out. We're going to lube this up really well. Nice sticky grease, tacky red, whatever you want to use. We're trying to keep it all out of the brake area, but that definitely helps seal everything else. Now we're going to slowly press this on with the bolts as per manual's instructions. Go in a star pattern or whatever, just to go on nice and even and not crack anything. And that kind of presses the bearing back onto that shaft. We got a couple of washers. These lock nuts are always a pain in the butt. I wish there was an easier way to do these, but there's one that goes there that you just saw me put on. Here's the rear brake cable. That one's actually still functioning nice. The front one was locked up though. So I reran that one as well. Disassemble that as normal. I need to use the brakes when I'm tightening these axles up too, because these have a serious amount of torque on them. That one's got like 32 pounds. The other one's like 120 or something. Pretty crazy. But we've got these little tools. So get this. You got the axle nut right there in the back. That's low torque. And you got the one in front of it. But you got to be able to get that back one back off again with that tool. So you got to find what you need and then torque it down and then do a slight over torque on it, because now I can't get that back one off yet, you know? So do a slight over torque until you can get that off, and then now it's good to go. And just like that, we have everything back into operating order. All it takes is time and money. And if I'm being honest, most bikes that are outside or four-wheelers, they typically turn into something like this. So next time you drop your four-wheeler or dirt bike off at your local friendly Honda shop, keep this video in mind, because whatever you're asking them to do or repair on your bike is likely not going to be too much fun. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a comment below, subscribe if you're new. If you like working on your own bike and learning how to fix it rather than break it, in the description below is a free course, Rents to Ride course, 40 plus videos on how to consistently take care of your bike. As a Honda technician, I see a lot of things in the shop that I want to share with you, and I've shared with thousands of people. That being said, until next time, Cody from Motorcycle MD, bringing you guys some quality tips and tricks for your next build or your daily ride. See you next time. Later.